After 14 long years, Reggie Bush has finally gotten his Heisman Trophy back, rightfully so. It is back where it belongs. The NFL draft is just a mere hours away, and I think it is going to be one of the craziest drafts that we will see in recent times. But at the same time, I feel like I said that last year and I said that the year before. It seems like it is just continuing to repeat, but it continues to get better from the year prior, and I'm expecting that fully this NFL draft. And last but not least, Matty Ice, Matt Ryan, has officially called it quits. I know you're probably shocked hearing that because he was just announcing NFL football games last year, but he's not pulling a Phillip Rivers comeback. He is officially retiring and hanging the cleats up. I'm your host, Matthew Raridan, and this is Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Total Sports Talk Beyond the Lights. And we have missed you guys. It was such a long weekend. We really enjoy what we do here, and I hope that you guys enjoy it as well. But we have to really dive into what's happening in the sports world because that's what we do every time. But there's just always something going on. There's always more and more and more. And now here we are just a couple hours away at the NFL draft, and it's going to be insanity as it always is. But before we talk about the NFL draft, I do have to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is the breaking news that did come out that Reggie Bush has now been given back his Heisman Trophy. This has been a long time coming, and I want to talk more about it. But first, I want to introduce both of my co-hosts here today. First, I've got David Street,
What's up, everybody?
and secondly, I've got Ed Smith.
Welcome, y'all.
And yes, as you hear Ed yelling out loud, hook 'em, y'all, because this is the very Heisman that Reggie Bush did steal from Vince Young. But in the end, Vince Young had the last laugh with the game-winning touchdown run to win the national championship game. But we could talk more about that, but I think that we do need to talk about Reggie Bush and this whole Heisman controversy. It seems like every single year college football's around and you see Reggie Bush on a commercial, whether it be Wendy's and them mocking, the whole Heisman take, or it's like baseball talking about Pete Rose, he belongs in the Hall of Fame. Well, this is Reggie Bush's Heisman that he did rightfully win, that was stripped away from him due to, as we know it, money, baby, money. And we're going to talk about why it's changed. And once again, why it changed. Oh, money's always involved. But guys, do you think this was the right choice finally that Reggie Bush got his Heisman Trophy back?
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, what I think of is this is basically, in my opinion, the equivalent of a man being told that he only has a few months left to live. And so what does he do? He fills items on his bucket list. And one of those items is more than likely making amends with those he wronged because his time's about to come and he doesn't want to go out on a bad note. Well, I think the same logic applies here. The NCAA is a dying organization. We all know that it's dying. And I think the people of the NCAA are trying to get on people's good graces by doing something that really should have been done a long time ago. And as you pretty much said, Matthew, Reggie Bush never should have gotten his Heisman Trophy taken away, especially when the thing he got punished for had nothing to do with his on-field abilities whatsoever. So,
Ed?
I completely love how it ended up as far as Texas taking the national championship. Reggie Bush can have the Heisman. Let him keep the Heisman. Give him back his Heisman. I've been saying this for years. Reggie Bush needs to have his Heisman back the day that players start getting paid not just in scholarships, but also real money from the schools to go play college football at those schools. Now, it is a slippery slope. As soon as the news broke, there were tons of people saying, well, if Reggie Heisman gets his trophy back, then all these wins go back to the school. And then these other off the field punishments, should be reversed as well. This is just one instance, and it needs to stay at one instance. But it's so easy to fall down that rabbit hole of, well, if this could be reversed, well, then this could be reversed, and then this could be reversed. And I don't want to see that happen. Now, just for a point of clarification, it wasn't the NCAA that took the Heisman away. It was the the Heisman Trust that took that away because it quote unquote besmirched the name of that organization. And considering all the pressure that organization has had here recently with the payments going to players, it was time for them to go ahead and make it right by giving him back the Heisman that he rightfully deserved on the field.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Matthew.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but essentially they opened Pandora's box. So this slippery slope that Ed is talking about, it's true. They opened up Pandora's box, and now it is more of the domino effect of what's to come. But David, actually, I wanted to talk more on the what you said. I really liked your talking point because this last year, the Heisman did get roasted, essentially. We talked about on this show of how in the heck does a 3-loss quarterback win the Heisman? So they
You guys were talking about that,
yeah.
not me. Don't put
Yeah,
that
but
on
I'm
me.
just saying we've talked about it here on this show, and yes, the Heisman has gotten, some, you know, mud in their face because of that, and now here they are, well, let's give Reggie Bush his Heisman Trophy back, and it's like, all right, well, now here they are trying to get on people's good graces all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. And for me, like the biggest problem that I have or had with Reggie Bush's Heisman being taken away is like what is it supposed to accomplish? Like you think that taking away his Heisman Trophy, you think you have some kind of magic wand that just takes away everything he did on the field. He still had the season he had. So what point are you trying to prove here?
The same reason Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame. I mean, I get what you're saying. So Reggie Bush essentially did break the rules, but so did everyone else. Let's just be real. If you were a star player of that caliber, like Reggie Bush was essentially untouchable on that field. He was the best player on the field pretty much 9 times out of 10 when he was on there. So that's why he won the Heisman, but he broke a rule. He did get caught, and that's why they took it away. But like I said, everyone pretty much has. It's just the reason now it's kind of funny that yes, he's getting it back now. Well, because the same thing that he got in trouble for is essentially what people are now legally able to do, which is
Yeah.
NIL.
Well, as I said before, right? Like, it wasn't like he got punished for something he did on the field, right? Like, if he committed an on field rule, like that would be one thing. And obviously, if you do break a rule, you should get punished. But if the rule you broke has nothing to do with what you accomplished on the field, then it doesn't seem right to take away the Heisman Trophy because again, like we're talking about something that you did off the field, not on the field.
Well, to play devil's advocate, and I'm sure Ed could chime in here too on this. Is well, what if he was in trouble for murder? He was sentenced for murder, something like that. I know this seems kind of drastic, but at that point, would you then strip him? Because their reasoning is, well, here's our name, and he just, what is it, Ed? He besmirched it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And if you think back to that was a team that was constantly surrounded by celebrities and constantly surrounded by the LA scene and everything that had to do with all these, big money guys, back and forth and back and forth. And yet, yes, he broke a rule. Yes, the recruiting, got him there by breaking the rules, but it isn't like there wasn't some other money floating around in that pool of LA, Hollywood, USC. It all became one thing. And that was Pete Carroll's plan all along, to have it all become one thing and make USC football sexy again. And he did. And there was nothing sexier about USC football than Reggie Bush just juking people out of their jock straps left and right. I still think back to that game against Fresno State.
Fresno State. Yeah.
Yep. And that was quintessential Reggie Bush in college. And to your point, David, he absolutely won it on the field. They had already handed this piece of hardware to him and said, "You are the best player in college football." Nobody's going to think that somebody else won that award because you got it taken away. You were the best player in college football that year, so you should have kept your Heisman all along. Let the chips fall where they may as far as NCAA regulations and all that stuff. The Heisman is through a separate organization than the NCAA. So let the NCAA handle what it needs to. You have already put your ducks in that basket to give him this award. You can't then take it back. It's not a thing to just, here you go. No, you don't. It just doesn't make. It never made sense to me to begin with.
Yeah. Well, what's also really interesting is we know that Reggie Bush was not the only person, who got in trouble for money and, and all that jazz. I mean, other clear examples to me, Cam Newton to Auburn, Johnny Manziel, Texas A&M. Not only that, but Johnny Manziel has quite literally openly admitted to being paid, right? And yet none of those guys get punished, and I think it's easy to see why, because the people in charge of that organization, whatever you called it, and I can't remember the name of it now, but like they know that it's almost like they don't want to deal with the same backlash that they dealt with when they took away that trophy from Reggie Bush.
And the funny part is, the money was going to Reggie Bush's parents.
Yeah.
It was being funneled through his parents, not directly through the player itself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a back channel thing, and I don't understand. And that's a great point, David. I don't understand how your Cam Newtons and your Johnny Manziels and all these other players that we know got paid could still keep their Heisman with no peep, no word, no nothing. But yet, this one guy, this one time, this one place, he needs to be the example that we need to make and take his Heisman away.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Exactly. And then just one last thing. I do take back what I said. I said they got in trouble. We know they didn't get in trouble, but you all know what I mean.
Yeah, and although this person didn't win the Heisman, he got punished, but it was like a slap on the wrist, and that was Terrell Pryor. I mean, the tattoo parlor incident, and it's like he wasn't the first person to do this. He wasn't the last, but he got caught. And, here's a little slap on the wrist. I'm pretty sure it was like a 2-game suspension, if that. But like I said, he also didn't win Heisman either, so a little
But
different.
that was through the NCAA. That wasn't through the Heisman Trust.
Yep. Yeah. And one last of note, just a fun fact before we head on to the next topic, was that USC Trojan team was the inventor of the tush push. I just want to put that out there. When it became somewhat legal, is they were the first team to do that, and Reggie Bush acted like he didn't know what the heck. Oh, my weight was shifted into him. I didn't know that. But I just wanted to let you all know that it wasn't the Eagles, okay? It was the USC Trojans
against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in South Bend. I remember that game very clearly.
Right on the goal line, yeah.
Yep.
So that was one of the first it ever happened, and it was because it was such a rule that you not forcibly push the quarterback or the runner, but that's where they found that leeway where we'll find a way to do it. There's a loophole.
And that rule had been in place since before the Ice Bowl.
Yeah.
There was a really funny meme that I saw once about the tush push with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, and I don't remember exactly. I think it showed a picture of a quarterback who was actually like terrible, and it was saying that like Jalen Hurts is that quarterback, and the caption said something along the lines of Jalen Hurts when he doesn't have a bunch of fat offensive linemen pushing him in.
Well, I don't want to get too far sidetracked, but please tell me you guys have seen the Old Spice commercial with Mark Sanchez, because this is marketing genius. So this NFL draft, which we're actually just about to talk into, so this is perfect segue. Bo Nix of the Oregon Ducks and Jackson Powers Johnson of the Oregon Ducks, quarterback and center combo. They have now done an Old Spice commercial with Mark Sanchez, who is famous for one thing and one thing only, and that is the butt fumble. And Mark Sanchez in the commercial essentially said, you know, guys, in the NFL, you don't know how important it is to have your relationship with the center, because it is really important. It's a make it or break it moment. And in Mark Sanchez, he will go down as the butt fumble king because of that. That's his career. That's what he's known for the most. So I
Mhm.
just thought that was marketing genius. That was a great commercial by Old Spice. If you haven't seen it, look it up on YouTube. I'm sure you could find it. But yes, the NFL draft. So before the NFL draft happens, there is always so many chess moves happening, chess versus checkers, or just psychological warfare and smoke screens. Well, the New York Jets have decided to trade Zach Wilson, their only backup quarterback, to the Denver Broncos, who also only has a backup quarterback as their starting quarterback as of now, and Jarrett Stidham. So they traded Zach Wilson to the Broncos, and they had a late round draft pick swap where the Jets got the Broncos 6th round pick, and the Broncos got Zach Wilson and the Jets 7th round pick. And it's a very interesting move. This is Zach Wilson, a former number 2 overall pick. That was a reach, in my opinion. And he never was able to really make it in the NFL. He's known more for his off the field antics as a Cougar lover. Now, I'm not talking about the team he played for. And versus his on the field antics of being a great quarterback in the NFL. He has struggled to do that, similar to Sam Darnold, who was also on the Jets. So it's almost like, wow, bad moves here. But Zach Wilson is still trying to live up to this hype, but it's going to be tough. But uh, this kind of begs me to ask this question: who the heck's going to back up this 40-year-old quarterback coming off of an Achilles injury for the New York Jets? Oh yeah, it's Aaron Rodgers, by the way. Who's going to back him up?
Hey,
I think it's going
sign
to
me
wind
up.
up being somebody in the late rounds, just a Kirk Cousins type, where you're just taking a shot on him, just seeing if he'll work out, something like that, like
Sam Hartman.
Washington did. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, you go from a guy that has come out with a beard, come out with a mustache, come out with clean shaven, come out looking like freaking Nick Cage in Con
Yeah.
Air, all the way down to Captain Handsome,
Yeah.
in Sam Hartman. So I think it's going to be somebody in the late rounds, because the Jets don't have a first round pick uh, in this. I mean, a second round pick this year. So it's going to have to be one of those late round guys that they take a flyer on.
Well, let's also talk about the fact that I think we're all in agreement here that Zach Wilson should have never been a second overall pick. Like he should have never gotten drafted that high. And the reason why he did, and this is an ongoing issue that GM scouts deal with all the freaking time. It's like there's that one dude in college who just has one phenomenal year, has one great year, then all of a sudden he's the next best thing since sliced bread, right? Like we saw it with Mitchell Trubisky. Obviously, we saw it with Zach Wilson, right? Now, in some ways, it can work out for the best. I mean, we kind of also saw it with Joe Burrow, but Joe Burrow also had arguably the best year ever for a college quarterback. So that was one thing. But my point still stands is that we have these quarterbacks who, for the most part in their college careers, they've been average. But then finally, that one year, they have a really really good year, and GMs and scouts think that those quarterbacks can carry that momentum into into the pros, when really more often than not that one really good year they had was just really an outlier more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, at which point do we stop listening to the Mel Kipers and all of them? Because look at to further your point, David, Josh Rosen, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, all these guys that GMs just reached for because, well, they were so high on Mel Kiper's draft board, or they had this one year, they have the size. And to Trey Lance's defense, I mean, he's dealt with injuries, but at the same time, look at look at all these guys. It is a constant trend, and I guarantee you it's going to happen this draft as well. Um, Drake May has the size and and has the possible upside too to him, but this is a guy that wasn't super dominant in college. So it makes you wonder. I saw plenty of headlines saying drafting Drake May is going to get a GM fired. And it's like, well, the people that are saying that, are they saying that as a smokescreen because they want Drake May, or it?
Yeah.
You don't know because until draft pick is announced by Roger Goodell, you don't know who the heck your own team's going to draft because they're sending out all these different signals, mixed signals, to pretty much get the scent off them of who they really have their eye on.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the one example, it's not the only example, but like one example I can think of a quarterback that was a reach, but did so far has worked out so far is Josh Allen, because Josh Allen was not good in college. He was even worse in high school. He literally got picked because of his physical abilities and his traits and what he was projected to be. And credit to the Bills, Josh Allen has turned out to be exactly who they thought. But yes, for the most part, it's insane to me how often GMs will reach just because of potential.
I mean, I won't say this player was a reach, but you look at Trevor Lawrence, who was undefeated in high school, was undefeated for the most part in college until he met Joe Burrow, and then he was the number one overall draft pick because, well, this guy has quite the resume. National championship winner, was undefeated in high school, but has he had the best NFL career yet? No, but he still could live up to that potential. He's by no means a bust whatsoever, but uh, that he got drafted because mainly of his resume from before.
Yeah, and what tends to happen every year in the draft, we get to this, couple days before, and somebody shoots up the big board out of nowhere just from either interviews or they had a private workout that nobody saw. Then there was one throw that, just blew everybody away. And it's just it's a goes every single year, because every single year the teams that are drafting first are usually in need of what? A quarterback, because this is a quarterback driven league, and if you do not have that, you need to go get that. And that leads to a lot of these teams going to get it and reaching for it well before it is necessary for those players to come off the board. And in a lot of cases, those quarterbacks need to have somebody in front of them to teach them. Jordan Love was considered a bust as a backup in his first season. You you see the progression from him. He takes over this year. He's looking really good so far, and it's because he had that time to develop.
Hmm.
These quarterbacks being pulled and reached for in the first, 5, 10 picks of the draft, they do not have that luxury of time. And that is actually something that they need to get ready to be on the field, because there is value in learning what the speed of the game looks like in, on the sideline, and not just having somebody like Micah Parsons running full speed at you, and that's how you figure out how fast the NFL is.
Well, and it's also a pattern with the Packers, as you obviously know, Ed. Like Jordan Love developed under Rodgers, Roger developed under Favre. Now, did Favre develop under someone, or did he start right away?
He got traded to the Packers from the Falcons, and was behind Don Mikowski
Okay.
before Mikowski got hurt, and then Favre came in and took over.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and we talk about development sitting behind, a player, maybe a future Hall of Famer, but what about development with having the right head coach? Because here's Zach Wilson going to Denver, where Sean Payton, who also took over with another former number 2 pick in Drew Brees. So, Zach Wilson is no Drew Brees, but we saw what, Sean Payton and Drew Brees were able to do down in New Orleans, and
Wait, did you say
Point
former number? Did,
first pick of the second round.
oh, first pick of the second round, okay, yes, I was
Yeah.
off there, but
I think we got what you meant, but
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
but Drew Brees, though, under Sean Payton was the best Drew Brees that we ever saw, and I think that that is important to note of sometimes you need that right coach, and Sean Payton could be that right coach for Zach Wilson, but I also don't think that they are going to stick with him or Jared Stidham as their quarterback. I think it's a given that they will go quarterback in the first
Yeah.
round.
Well, and I've made this point before too that like sometimes there is just that perfect coach and a quarterback marriage. And yes, Sean Payton certainly deserves credit for developing Drew Brees because, as you correctly pointed out, Matt, Drew Brees had his best years under, or excuse me, yeah, Drew Brees had his best years under Sean Payton. But again, I think that was a perfect marriage between Sean Payton and between Drew Brees that Sean Payton and I just don't think is going to get with any other quarterback.
And keep in mind, the year that uh, Sean Payton got Drew Brees, there was a competition to see if it was going to be Drew Brees or Dante Culpepper going to New Orleans that year. Miami wound up getting Dante Culpepper, and we never heard from him again.
Yeah.
So Sean Payton has a history of taking a pocket passer, not one that relies on physical abilities, but more, knowing where to throw the ball and having the arm strength and the accuracy to do it. Now they have to work on the accuracy a little bit with Zach Wilson, but the point still stands. Sean Payton can develop Zach Wilson and tailor his offense to Zach Wilson's skill set, at least to get him through 1 year. So I could actually see them not taking quarterback this draft just because there's so many holes in that roster right now that they need to fill. And there are quarterbacks coming. When you take a look at the draft in the next couple of years, there are some dogs out there that we can't wait to have come into the league.
Yeah, and
Is
Denver
one of those
also. Oh.
is one of those a literal dog like Carson Beck from Georgia?
That's
Yeah,
one of them.
yeah, and yeah, Denver also has that dead cap too because of the whole Russell Wilson situation. So they have a hole that they're needing to dig themselves out of. So they may not have to stretch that much this year because they're still trying to recover from that. And funny you talked about Dante Culpepper. It's amazing what your career is like when you don't have Chris Carter or Randy Moss catching
Jake
your
Reed,
balls.
Robert Smith, Klein Saucer. I mean,
But on the Drew Brees thing, just really quick for people who didn't know, Drew Brees was close to calling it quits because of the surgery he had coming from San
Yep.
Diego. He was so close to calling it quits, and I mean he's probably happy he didn't. I mean he said he couldn't even grip a ball, couldn't throw a ball. Most of his career was in pain, and here he is with is he still the leading passer in the NFL history? I think most passing yards.
I think he got past literally
Yeah,
uh, uh, a year or so after he hung it up uh, by the immortal one,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
TB12. So,
yeah. Who's thinking about coming back again? I mean, gosh, you can
uh,
never. This his publicity stunt. He must be low on money or something. But let's
and
start
only
talking.
1 billion in the bank.
Yeah, let's start talking about the NFL draft. And this question should always be asked because something always happens. uh, because of this. But what can be the most blindsided move that shocks everybody? And I imagine it's going to be first round. So let's just stick probably the first round. But do you guys have a blindside move?
Yeah, I got one. JJ McCarthy being the second pick. I'm telling you, we know it
Yeah.
shouldn't happen, but we should not be surprised if it does happen.
I'm just
What?
going to hold on, David. I'm gonna go ahead and say mine because mine is, and you're gonna probably say this guy is not a sports fan or football fan because of this, but I'm coming out of left field here. JJ McCarthy.
I'm going to go the other side of the ball. I'm going to say Dallas Turner to the Giants. That would that would just floor everybody.
Yeah.
And what am I basing that on? Not much, but you've got Daniel Jones. They've talked about moving up to get a quarterback. If the quarterbacks that they want are out of there, then they're kind of left holding the bag at that point. So take what your best option is, and by the time you get down to where the Giants are sitting, because I'm sure the Vikings are going to jump up and work a deal to get that fourth quarterback in the first 5 picks. Get in there and get somebody that would create excitement now, not somebody that you have to develop.
Can you
And to me, that's Dallas Turner.
can you imagine Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, Dallas Turner? Could be on to something. I mean, they used to always say defense wins championships. I mean, that's not going to happen with the Giants. So let's be
It,
real. But yeah,
well, when the Giants have won championships,
yeah.
what did they do it on? They did it on the defensive line.
Mhm.
Strahan, yeah, yeah. I mean, they did for sure. Uh,
Jason Pierre-Paul, yeah.
and another quiet one that I mean, this isn't one that's going to really shock everyone. Like, oh my gosh, but a running back getting drafted in the first round. Don't think it's going to happen, but if that were to happen, that would be a shock because they don't have any running back in this draft graded at all to go in the first round. So that
Who's
would
the
be a shock.
who's the highest graded? I
I
imagine
think
it's probably Trey
right,
Benson.
him or Jonathan Brooks.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
I
he's
think
coming off
Jonathan
an
Brooks
injury.
will wind up being in the third round just because coming off an injury that sets him back so far from where his original grade is going to be. How is his knee going to react after being injured at the end of last season, going into training camp this year?
And a fun thing to pay attention to is uh, 19. The record right now is 19 offensive players being drafted in the first round for the most ever. This is expected to possibly break that. So pay attention to that. 19 offensive players in the first round is
Mhm.
right now the current record. And this draft is expected to possibly break that with the most offensive players drafted in the first round. But let's go a little opposite here of who is that player that's going to get picked way later than projected. So this is someone that, oh, they say they're first round talent. Will Levis, and then they find out you put mayonnaise in your coffee, and they kick you to the second round. Who's that this year?
I'm gonna go with Michael Penix because I think Michael Penix is a clear first round talent, but I think his injury history is going to scare a lot of GMs.
I'm going to go. Yeah, I'm going to go with your boy Bo Nix because I think the age thing can become a problem because has he capped out on what his true skill set has going for him. You know, he's old enough, he's mature enough, he can handle everything, but does he have a higher ceiling than what he's shown so far? So does that push him into the second round? I don't know. I've seen him go anywhere from 16 to the Seahawks, all the way back to mid to late second round.
Yeah.
I don't think he's even going to be in the green room for the first round. Is that right?
I don't believe so either, but I don't know. Things could change because it seems like a lot of people now seem to be more interested, but he has been lately a fringe first, second round pick. Can't really tell which one it's gonna fall in, but I think that it's gonna be really quarterback heavy in the first 15 picks or so.
To me, it does make sense to take the quarterback in the at the end of the first round, a la Lamar Jackson,
Yeah.
because you get the option of the 5th year club option. Whereas in the second round, you don't get that. It's either put up or shut up. It's not wait a year, see how it goes, and then see where we go from there. If you have that 5th round option, you could leverage that for a trade for either more picks or uh, continue to develop them looking toward the future if something happens with your current starter.
Yeah. Yeah, so, player I mean, I got, like, 3 different players here, that I'll just shoot really quick. Cooper DeJean from Iowa, he has always been, classified as, like, a first-round talent, but his injury, could push him later. Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama, is pretty much since he came into college, he was considered possibly being a first-round talent. Could be another one that could kinda get pushed, and then this is another interesting development that just came out that teams are talking about. Gosh, I can't think of his name or even pronounce it, but believe it's last name's Latu from UCLA.
UCLA.
Yeah, I mean, he medically retired from Washington just 2 years ago. So, because of his neck injury. So, he came back. He's had like 36 sacks the last 2 years for UCLA, but teams are very worried about his medical history that could it come back to haunt him. I mean, there had to have been a reason he medically retired from football, right? He did come back. He has done great since then, but you never know what could happen that could affect it even more. I mean, look at Tua when he played the Bengals. They thought, "Oh, his head's fine," and then he had to be carried off in a stretcher.
Ed, I gotta say, like, I'm a little surprised that for your player you didn't say Devondre Sweat. Now, yes, I understand you can make the argument that because of the dumb off the field thing he did, where he's projected late is exactly where he deserves to be projected. But then you could also say that he'll get picked even later than that if that makes any sense.
Oh, I've said my piece about Tavondre Sweat. He could wind up being a great value pick later on if he turns it around, because this was the absolute worst time to be a stupid kid.
Yeah.
And a stupid kid is somebody that does exactly what he did, trying to get behind the wheel of a car uh, when he's had anything of substance in his system. When you are possibly first round draft talent, now you're going to have a lot of long, leering eyes from the NFL execs saying, third, fourth round,
Hmm.
because I'm not willing to invest that kind of uh, money, your contract, any of that stuff into somebody that at this point in his life is still acting like a kid.
Do you remember? This kind of reminds me if you guys remember the Laramie Tunsil situation,
Oh yeah.
because he was supposed to be like top 5, and it was literally what was it, the night before maybe draft night, or it was when the video came out, and you just saw no one was picking him, no
Yeah.
one at all, and it just kept going and going, and it was
Well, not
like
only top five,
Do you
Matt.
guys have a slide whistle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, not only top 5, but if I remember correctly, there were even some projections having him as the first overall pick.
Yeah, and that's what happens when you end up being foolish. We all make mistakes. We are human. We are far from
Absolutely.
perfect. So I do want to put that out there. And these are young guys that are getting money for the first time. They're getting paid, and I'm sure I'd make some a little bit of stupid decisions. But the night before draft night, where you're expected to be possibly number 1, 2, top 5, and then you just see yourself slide. We saw that with Johnny Manziel too, where he just kept
Mhm.
going, and you saw his face just turn into a straight depression almost. And as he got drafted, I think number 22 to the Browns, and that was probably even worse. But it's just
I would have been
that's what
depressed
happens.
getting drafted by the Browns that year too.
Yeah, even if you were
Yeah.
number 1. But, we kinda talked about this earlier, Ed did when he brought up, Minnesota specifically, but what trades do you see happening? I think that's the obvious one. They did collect 2 first-round draft picks this year. Well, 1 of their own, and they collected, Houston's first-round pick. So, I feel like that's a pretty foreshadowing event there that they will be a trade candidate. Do you guys see any other sleeper teams?
Well, the Rams are a team that don't put a lot of stock in the draft if they are ready to go. If they just need that one or two extra piece to do what they need to do. So I kind of see them if if their target is getting close to being picked, I would not it would not surprise me to have them jump a couple spaces just to ensure that they get the guy that they want. And what I'm thinking that they want is the other Texas defensive tackle, Byron Murphy, since Aaron Donald retired, and he could just plug right in with a have a young core in the middle of that defensive line. Super talented, super quick, great hands, great leverage. I really see that being a possibility because the Rams, like I said, they have actually gone through a draft and not had a single draft pick before. So what would make me think that they value their late round draft picks enough to not try and hand over one just to make sure that they get the guy that they want in the first round.
Yeah, the Chargers are another team to keep an eye on. It's almost certain. Well, I would say almost certain that they are going to draft offensive lineman or a receiver. So they're a candidate to trade back with them holding the number 5 pick. So I think they would be a trade candidate. I have seen the recently Indianapolis Colts possibly going all the way up to number 4 just so they could get Marvin Harrison Jr., carry that legacy over to Indy just like his father. So that's something to keep an eye on because not Carolina, Arizona, the Cardinals, they have pretty much said that they would probably draft Marvin Harrison Jr. or a receiver. So if that's the case, you're going to have to give him all of, King Midas's ransom at that point to get that number 4 pick. But Arizona said they are open, but so did New England. And I think we all know that they're not. They're going to draft a quarterback. They need to draft a quarterback. So let's
Well,
just be honest and real about that.
Either they draft a quarterback or they have open tryouts. It's
Yeah.
why I can't think of any sleeper teams at the moment, but like one trade that could possibly happen. I think we all saw the Trey Hendrickson news. He requests to be traded. Although in fairness, that's probably more than likely a negotiating tactic to get a new deal. But he did request a trade, so
Well, he kind of put all of his cards on deck because yeah, he requested a trade. Then he said, "Oh, then I may retire. Like if I don't get my."
yeah,
Well, you
he
just
did say
showed
that.
all of your cards, buddy. I mean, you should have waited and one more step before you said that. Now you got no leverage. Yeah, they're Bengals. They're in a tough situation just because they've already given Joe Burrow the bag. They will be giving Jamar Chase the bag. They gave Orlando Brown Jr. the bag for an offensive lineman. And they're in an interesting situation come next year of who can they afford to give longer contracts to. But I mean, they've done the right thing in my opinion. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase are pretty generational talents there that deserve to get the money float their way. And talking about money floating their way, we have to talk about really quick. Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra St. Brown did get contract extensions, and rightfully so. Those two players have been staple of that offense in Detroit. Detroit, I never thought I'd say this, they are doing all the right things, and it's going to be even more exciting for them in for the draft this year.
You are so
Detroit?
salty, Ed.
Yeah,
Detroit?
Detroit. I mean, you were able to watch. I mean, Barry Sanders play back then.
Mhm.
Me, my lifetime, not really. So
For
Detroit,
one,
no.
I watched the entirety of their one playoff win
Yeah,
in the 90s.
Yeah.
yeah.
Fun,
So
fun fact, but the general manager of the Detroit Lions went to my high school.
oh, that's pretty cool. So, I mean, it just shows you that people are all around the country. So, just
Mhm.
because they're at one place now, doesn't mean that's where they're from. So, that's pretty cool, though, David. But they do have to extend Jared Goff too. So, that's another thing that they're going to have to tackle probably here as well. But speaking
Let
of
me ask you
quarterback,
guys this. Let me
yeah,
ask you guys this. I don't mean to step on your toes there, Matthew, but let me ask you this. What's it going to take to get the Cowboys to poop or get off the pot when it comes to Dak Prescott? What's it going to take? Because there's been so much talk in this offseason, infighting with player wives or player family and offense versus defense, and they can't get him the contract that he feels like he deserves, but they're almost in salary cap purgatory a lot. And then you've got these other talents around him that they have to extend. There's not enough money to go around underneath the salary cap, but what's it going to take? Do they need to be the team that has the just shock of the world move when we get into this draft and trade Dak Prescott to go get another player to start over? I mean, what is it going to take?
I think Dak Prescott's time is done there. I think they are better off extending CD Lamb versus Dak Prescott, in my opinion. I think CD Lamb is more proven, but it is tough when you're a quarterback because you do have the spotlight more on you. But I think CD Lamb has shown more of his worth. But yes, I do. I think they're going to trade Dak Prescott. I don't. I don't think they will, although they probably should because he will then end up being a free agent. So they should try to at least get something worth out of it. But I do think they do move on from Dak Prescott.
David, any thoughts?
I mean, I know we clown, mostly I clowned. Well, we've all clowned Dak Prescott, but it's like, is the problem more so Dak Prescott, or is it more so Mike McCarthy? I almost said JJ there, but is it more so Mike McCarthy? Because I think under the right coach, Dak Prescott can possibly, emphasis on possibly, turn into, well, let's just say a better quarterback than he is now. So is it more Dak Prescott, or is it just more the coaching and like the personnel that he's under?
That's a fair point. He has been under a couple of different offensive mindsets. When he first got started, it was him and Zeke carried the load of the offense, and he was a great complement to it. Now that he is the focal point of the offense and Mike McCarthy, his offense is so quarterback central, it's difficult for me to say that he is the quarterback to run that offense as efficiently as it needs to be after seeing how Aaron Rodgers ran that same offense in Green Bay. It's nothing like what McCarthy's offense was supposed to look like. So that's your point is well taken, and I think that is part of the problem with Dak Prescott in Dallas right now is the fact that it's not an offense that best suits his abilities because Mike McCarthy is so bullish on his quarterback centric offense.
And David, you actually would have been right if you said JJ because, well, there is another
Oh,
guy that has those initials there named Jerry Jones, who is always going to be an issue when it comes to any type of development there. So I think it starts at the top with Jerry Jones and, yes, Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott when it comes to more of the on the field development. But like I said, I think that Dak Prescott's time is done in Dallas. I think they do just need to figure out that and then extend CD Lamb. So, but I'm not a GM and I'm not for a reason. So, but that's my 2 cents when it comes to that situation there. But speaking of quarterbacks, I talked about it earlier. Matt Ryan, also known as Matty Ice, has retired after 15 seasons in the NFL. All no, was he? No, he was not. All of which in Atlanta, right? He ended up
he was with the Colts for
the
the first
Colts.
Yeah.
last
Yeah,
two
yeah.
seasons.
I almost said
By the
all
way,
of.
legend has it that Matt Ryan actually took that nickname Matty Ice from you. So that's what I heard.
Yeah, it's the rumor on the street, which means it's true. Just like everything you see on the internet, it is true. So, in the words of Kurt Angle, "Oh, it's true. It's damn true." So, but Matt Ryan, he will go down. Like I talked about, Mark Sanchez with the butt fumble. Matt Ryan will go down with the biggest choke job probably of all time, 28-3, leading the New England Patriots in Super Bowl and losing that same Super Bowl. I'll never forget where I was when that happened because I was flying home from Hawaii. It was halftime at the time and it was 25-3. And we were all celebrating because no one liked the Patriots. Everyone was like, yes, they're gone. Bye, Tom Brady. We landed, and when we found out who won, because they announced it on the overcom, we're like, all right, you can stop joking with us now. No, that's actually what happened. But yes, Matt Ryan will go down with that story of 28-3. It'll always be embedded in his head. But is he a Hall of Famer?
No,
Besides that, is he a Hall of Famer?
at least
No.
not on the first ballot. But overall, I would say no.
Overall, I would say no. I don't think he was the best quarterback coming out of Boston College.
Who,
Dude,
Doug Flutie?
he
You
was
got Brady,
actually
you got Hasselbeck, you got Matt
Yeah.
Ryan.
yeah. Well, here's the thing about Matt Ryan. Why I say he's not a Hall of Famer, and Ed, you might agree with me, but when I look at Matt Ryan's career, he was a very good quarterback, but he was like there was like never any long period where he was unquestionably the best quarterback in the National Football League. Like he won MVP one time, so there was one year where he was recognized as the best quarterback, right? But also like when you look at in my opinion, if you're going to go in the Hall of Fame, it should be either you had incredible regular season stats, right? Like even if you didn't have a Super Bowl, you have incredible regular season stats, or it could be that you were very good in the regular season, maybe not elite per se, but you were very good in the regular season, but you elevated your game in the postseason because the postseason matters more than the regular season. I mean, you look at a guy like Dan Marino. I mean, Dan Marino unfortunately never won a Super Bowl, but Dan Marino was also unquestionably the best quarterback in the National Football League at that time. I mean, there was no doubt about that guy. With Matt Ryan, that was just never the case with Matt Ryan. He was a very good quarterback. He had a very good career overall. The problem is that if you put Matt Ryan, and not that they really haven't done this with other players and whatnot, but you put Matt Ryan in the Hall of Fame, then in my opinion, you're kind of what's the word or phrase I'm looking for? You're
Mid,
basically what's that?
mid.
It's mid. But
Yeah.
what I'm trying to say is that you put a guy like Matt Ryan in the Hall of Fame, and you're basically kind of opening the door to just let any good quarterback to go in. Like, oh well, this quarterback won MVP, or this quarterback had some good years. Why don't we put them in the Hall of Fame?
Well, Ed, do you want to say your piece really quick because I have a question then for both of you then.
I don't think he belongs in the Hall of Fame, just like I don't think Philip Rivers belongs in the Hall of Fame.
Gosh dang it, Ed, that was my question.
Oh man, think of another one.
Because they're regular season warriors. And when you're talking about NFL success, it is about the postseason. It is about, how many wins have you gotten in the playoffs? Yes, Dan Marino is the exception because he was head and shoulders above everybody else as a passer, as a quarterback, as somebody that played the position. Yes, Joe Montana won all the Super Bowls during that same time period. I get that. But when we're talking about Matt Ryan, is he a quarterback that ever scared you? That you ever felt like you had to truly game plan against that guy more than anybody else in the league? And my answer to that is no. No.
Agreed.
The only player they had to game plan against was Julio Jones, pretty
Exactly.
Right.
much.
And
Now,
even then, that didn't help.
No.
this question is probably going to be met with yeah, no shit, obviously. But if the Falcons had won that Super Bowl, then is Matt Ryan a Hall of Fame quarterback? Still not first ballot, but is he a Hall of Fame quarterback if the Falcons win that Super Bowl?
Yes.
Yeah. When you
It's
have a
amazing
Super Bowl, like
how much that can change things.
Well, Eli Manning is being talked
yeah, I was gonna
about
say
for the
Eli
Hall of
Manning.
Fame because he won Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And to and for me, Eli Manning is worse in the regular season than what Matt Ryan was ever,
Yeah. And Philip Rivers.
and Philip Rivers.
And-
Mhm.
But he won 2 championships. I don't care if it was mainly because the defensive line just smothered Brady until he gave up,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or a miraculous helmet catch, or any of these other, this, that, or the other.
And also, was it Matt Ryan or was it Kyle Shanahan? Because let's keep in mind that Matt Ryan's career really didn't elevate until Kyle Shanahan came along. And listen, say whatever you want about the flaws and faults that Kyle Shanahan has, and he has plenty of them, but he is an offensive genius. And he was a huge reason why Matt Ryan had that career year that he did.
Oh, 100%.
There is one thing that Kyle Shanahan did not do, and that was run the
Run the ball.
freaking ball.
Yeah, it's almost like what Pierre Carroll didn't do on the 1 yard line against the Patriots as well. Run the ball. It's like, do you see a trend here? Like,
Right?
come on, people. But yeah, Philip. It's funny that you brought that up, Ed. But yeah, that was gonna be my question about the whole Philip Rivers thing because Philip Rivers did not win an MVP. I mean, he did win the Most Valuable Crybaby award, but he did not win an MVP. But he did put up great numbers as well. But he wasn't that quarterback you feared that you had to game plan against. And I'm so glad you brought that up too, Ed, because that's really what does make a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, is someone that you will fear, or they have those Super Bowl accolades, such as what Eli did. Big Ben will get in as well for that. Drew Brees, he did win a Super Bowl, but when you racked up the amount of yards and touchdowns he had, he probably would have got in even without that Super Bowl.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if he did wind up getting in the Super Bowl, and I'll give you the case. Um, Warren Moon. Warren Moon really did not have playoff success. He was in a specialized offense that threw the ball all over the field. He had racked up a lot of yards. He racked up a lot of touchdowns. You know, just everything. But was he? How similar is that to Matt Ryan's career? And that's why I would not be surprised if eventually Matt Ryan gets into the Hall. But I stand by. I don't think he deserves to be in the Hall.
Yeah, and I'll go over some of his stats right now. His 62,792 passing yards, it ranks 7th all time. His 381 passing touchdowns is 9th all time. He has a passer rating of 93.6, which is 19th of all time, and a career completion percentage of 65.6. So you are seeing that, 2 of those stats are top 10 of all time. So when you look at those numbers, it's almost like, well, maybe, but at the same time, you have to really watch him. You have to watch Matt Ryan play as a quarterback, and just like Ed said, he wasn't someone you really feared. So that also should kind of play a factor into it. So, I mean, I like the Warren Moon comparison, Ed, but those are Matt Ryan's numbers of all time. And as David mentioned, winning MVP in 2016 was also another career accolade he had. But other than that, no Super Bowl wins. That will go down as his legacy as the 28-3 choke job. So it's it's tough. He had a great career, I will say that. He still was a great quarterback, but when
Mhm.
it comes down to the Hall of Fame discussion, 50-50 on it, honestly. I'm
Yeah.
about 50-50. I know that sounds kind of like a basic answer, but like I said, two of those stats are top 10 of all time, so that has to somewhat mean something. And but not winning a Super Bowl, not really elevating yourself in the playoffs, is also a big factor too of why he won't get in. So
I
kind of on
mean,
the fence.
certainly he was. I mean, he was the greatest quarterback in Falcons history, so he at least deserves to be in their Hall of Fame. But that's probably as good as it's going to get for Matt Ryan there.
You know what? Brett Favre has something to say about that. Okay.
Okay, but Brett Favre didn't spend the majority of his time
I
in
know. I
Atlanta.
know, I know. I just had to shove that in there again just for people. Ed said it earlier, and some people may not know that, but Brett Favre was not always a Green Bay Packer. Okay. We know at the end of his career the teams he played for, but some people don't know he did not start out there. Just like Jerome Bettis did not start out on Pittsburgh Steelers, he was a Ram.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so which was just the anniversary of that trade was just the other day. So but yeah, there's a lot to talk about this draft, and I want you guys to really put in the comment section here your predictions, because there's going to be chaos. There's going to be trades left and right, some big trades, some not so big trades. It may not seem like some may want to collect draft capital even for next year's draft. I mean, next year's draft, you got Quinn Ewers possibly going to be the number one pick. There are quarterbacks going to be coming out, just like Ed said. There's always a cycle, and there's going to be the next great quarterback in the drafts to come, and there are already GMs thinking about that. So if you want to go ahead and drop in the comment section what you guys think, a big prediction or a little prediction of what you expect to happen, appreciate that. And also share, like, and subscribe these videos. We really appreciate that. It helps spread the word around of what we do, what we're about. And yes, I know it may seem like someone's going to watch this video and say, this guy really said JJ McCarthy number one. Guys, I'm telling you, I do know sports. It's just more of a joke, but I have to throw out some oddball uh, opinions just because it may actually happen, and I'll sound like a genius. So
I
I
feel
have to
like
kind of keep you on your toes.
I feel like there should be some kind of reward for you, Matthew, if you actually do end up being right. Like,
Well, hopefully we can make this go viral, and that'll happen because of you guys sharing these videos. So please, if you could do that, if my prediction is somehow right, it's a 1 in a million chance, like Lloyd Christmas, but it could happen. So, but until next time, guys, we are rounding third, and we are headed for home.